YouTube, Brian Phillips here with you today. We're back on the Airbus A380, working on the flaps mod. This is part 8, and part 7 we just kind of wrapped up with trying to work out this portion of the mechanism. So we're going to pick it up where we left off. We were just getting ready to kind of make some final decisions on placement here. And so we're going to pick it up where we left that off. So, it's tricky to hold this thing for the testing, but it sure looks like we have the same or similar deflection. But without adjustability built in, it does definitely leave some room for questions. So like, I'm going to bring this down to the second hole down, okay? There's a bunch of holes on that control arm thing. Okay, so that brings that way too high. Okay, so we went the wrong way there. Alright, cool. So it looks like it's going to have to be at least that long, if not longer, to satisfy. And then we could change the angle from here on this to vertical, because as this pulls back, the only thing we need to be real careful about is that it won't impede our ability to retract the landing gear later if we would do that, if we would do retracts. So that's important. We'll have to kind of keep that in mind. So I was actually thinking about one other method I hadn't seriously considered, but the other method I had been thinking about was if we actually took and pressed into this part to deploy the flaps. I just don't think we're going to be able to create enough leverage, because that's really hard for me to even do it. So if I can't do it with my strength, it's probably not going to work with the servo. So I think that's pretty much where we're going to be. We were talking about where the wire was going to end up. Now this, as you know, is just a brace that is partially decorative, but partially it's stabilizing this gear. And then underneath there is just raw foam. So we can either cut a channel, or we can just kind of more or less cut at a steep angle here and then slip this in. And then we can just cut at a steep angle all the way back into the main channel to get this wire back. But just thinking about the way this lines up, I've got this gigantic piece here, but there's nobody saying that you would have to do that. If you end up going this route, which I don't think I'm going to end up going that route for the permanent solution. I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'll probably end up just doing a bent rod, which I think would be good to kind of get that going. Looks like when we fully deflect the flaps, yeah, we should be okay where we are. And we've got a good reference here, so why don't we go ahead and use this as our reference. We'll go ahead and make our piece. Now this is already sharpened on the end, so that kind of helps a little bit. So we know that this needs to be, the first part needs to be long enough to reach all the way through and then out. But we don't want it to be so, ridiculously long that it's like out here. We don't want a bunch of unnecessary weight either. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do our first fold here. So let's get that nice and square. It doesn't probably need to be exactly square, but for now we'll start with it perfectly square, and then we can adjust from there a little bit. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're not going to have it perfectly square. So because we have this black hole here, it's easy to line up, but then on the other side it's kind of hard to tell which one you're getting into. So I just want to make sure that I get this into the correct hole. It's always important when you can't see to get it in the right hole. Okay, so we're in the correct hole. And we're going to want to do a Z-bend. So now we can go ahead and, I usually don't mark these things, but I'm going to go ahead and mark this, just because I don't want to fight it a bunch. So I'm going to go about halfway, and that's going to be our start point. And with this sharp end, I actually made it, actually probably too long, to be honest. I need it to be less long. But I can cut that off, and then the idea is when we're all done, we can either make a fold, or we can just leave it. It's probably not going to be able to work its way out. And if we cut it, it's not a big deal to have the sharp end gone, because we're not going to be feeding it in and out a lot. Okay. So we've got our mark here, so now we're going to take something that we can brace this against. And we want this bend to be nice and kind of square here. And then we'll go ahead and take and we'll just hold it like this, and then we can wrap it around itself. Okay. So this will give us our little adjustment, but there's enough meat there that we've got stuff to work with in case we need to make a significant adjustment. Try not to skimp on this step if you can. You don't want to be short on adjustment later. It's always better to have a little more than you need, except that it is extra weight, and you need to keep that in mind too, of course. I don't think it's going to be of major significance on this plane. The size of the plane, big sized wing like this, we're not going to really have a big issue there, I don't think. Okay, so this, finding this same hole in the dark, like I said, it's a little awkward. Okay, so it is the same hole. Now we can go ahead and bring this up. We are going to bring it to the same hole position, but then when this drops down, that'll just level it a little bit for us. Okay, so we do want to go ahead and get this. We want it to be similar to the other one, because we're about neutral in our adjustment over here. So two ways we can do that. We can either mark it, or we can just try to grab it with our bending tool. I think we might be able to just bend it, just mark it with our bending tool. As you can see, I'm just kind of holding on to it right where I think we need to be. And I'm just not going to let go, hopefully. Unless I have problems, and then I will. Okay, so I got that out. So now this is where you want to be careful to get your nice square bend. And this bend is going to be going, we're going to be going back toward ourselves here. Okay, so we've got a nice little bend there, and then we'll actually just leave a little bit of excess here. We'll just clip this off. You can always shorten it a little bit more yet still. Alright, good. So we got that bent. Let's see if we can find the whole blind again, which we did already once earlier, which is good. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get this. You know what? I'm just, because it's a pain in the butt to do this without having them sharped. Okay. That should make it quite a bit easier. I'll find the blind hole first. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's it. Nope, that's not it. That's it. Okay, so there's the hole I keep talking about. And if you do it right, it'll come out the same spot that you expect. Alright, so you got that in there. So now we can go ahead and retest again just like we did before. So you're getting an idea of the process now at least. So now I'm just kind of holding this like this so I can do it one-handed. Supporting this, and there you go. Seems like the linkage is plenty strong. Feels like it's really working hard, but as I press down onto this, I sometimes get a little bit of pressure translated onto the actual control surface, which is bad. To be honest, I've got a really good amount of deployment there, but I don't think I'm going to start from that far up. I think I'm actually going to... I'm either going to want to pull this off and move it over one click, which would kind of push this down a little bit. That should bring the flap, the whole assembly down a little bit. See, because then that'll drop that level. Let's see if I made it. Yeah, actually not probably going to be able to do that without collapsing my adjustment a little bit. Okay, that's too much. I'll have to bring it up and then open up the adjustment. You see why I do the adjustments, guys? It's just, if you get that on the first try, you're just some sort of a miracle worker. Okay, so now, in order to adjust that, I found it's usually pretty easy to try to use the same tool that you had used to bend it if you can. Then I'll usually brace against one other tool. You don't have to use two tools, but it does make it sometimes a little bit easier. And you see how it opens up, but it doesn't necessarily impact this position yet. It impacts the position after you straighten this part on both sides, okay? So now when you're squeezing this, that's when you'll look to see your positional location here, okay? And so it's actually like a 3 adjustment. Okay? So, with that being said, they're fairly neutrally located. I mean, they're about the same. Like I said, I don't mind a little bit of deployment all the time. Kind of almost like a fixed flap. I prefer it to be completely flat, but I have limited throw. Wowzers. I think we might actually have it. Now, keeping in mind, I'm not pressing down on this one either. Okay, so I'm in the middle setting. This is pressed tight now. Sounds like the ailerons are also kind of buzzing a little bit. Yeah, don't even think about doing this without a Metal Gear servo. You'll just immediately destroy it. Mostly trying to get it to calm down. See, and I kind of like where this is picking up, because this has kind of made that stay positionally the way it is. And the same thing is true over here because of the way we did this rod here. Is it forces this to stay positionally true, which is not necessarily good for the binding of the whole mechanism, but it's very good for keeping this supported because we don't have any support over here. It's just floating. Cool. See, now I've got them all calmed down. It's kind of hard on your motors to sit there and buzz like that. So now this one being pushed tight, I can take just a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard, or, you know, like if you got something like this, you can take a pair of scissors and just make a little gauge. And what I usually do is I'll go something like this. And it's very challenging because there's so many different things in the way of everything. But what you want to do is you want to get a feel for the angle of the flaps. Okay, so it's probably fairly... So I'm going to actually try it this way. See how it's kind of setting that down as I do this? So that's fairly close to the position. Now I have to press down this servo too, because remember, it's not glued yet. It's just in there loose. Oh yeah, that's pretty stinking close, guys. I don't think I'm going to get it that much closer. It definitely passes the look test. That looks awesome. Okay, so now that we have established kind of that position there, it's going to turn into a situation where I now need to cut this. And if I don't cut it here, the only option is to bring it forward the way we've designed this system. We could try it over here and just see if the mechanism still works. I doubt it will, but I think we have to. We owe it to ourselves to try it. Just to remove that doubt in the event that, you know, maybe we have a problem. You'll sit here and second guess yourself. Alright, so if we put this over here, how would that end up working? Let's just double check. Okay, so we would have it similarly positioned. I was going to watch out for falling sharp objects. Now once this is secure, it should pretty much take care of play that we might experience. But I mean, it would be really nice if I could have it out here, just, you know, from the standpoint of trying to kind of keep everything less complicated. But I don't think we're going to get it. I think this is going to have too much play in it. Yeah, it's exactly as I suspected. It's not going to work unless I had a really long piece here and then I went up and then over, which I could possibly go in here. Okay. I'm just double checking that I haven't missed something obvious. If I rotate this around, it's going to go the wrong way. Correct? Yeah. I just don't think we're going to get it. I don't think we're going to get it. I think we got to go the other way. That's fine. That's kind of what I figured we'd end up with. So, now I want to put my linkage back in. So it's in the correct position. So it won't get started and then find out, oh geez, we never actually got that back into the right hole. Yeah, this is just garbage. So, we have to cut a pocket for the servo now. That's our next step. And while we're doing this, we want to be just kind of mindful not to shoot ourselves in the foot on anything. So as we go, we're going to just double check our positions and make sure that everything is going to maintain proper alignment. And I'm also going to throw the screw into this. We need to score this up as well, which is going to give us a little better mounting surface for when we apply the glue around the servo. Remember, we only have 1, 2, 3 sides that we're going to be able to glue. We won't be able to glue this side because we've got the moving action. So, okay, so I just want to double check my position. If I get really lucky, I can leave one sliver of foam and just have the corner exposed. But I just want to be careful because I've got this, I think that's called the knee joint adapter there, that's going to swing down if we had retracts. Obviously we do retracts, this will disappear and it'll become something even more superficial here. I think the knee joint would just probably have to go, worst case scenario. You see that knee joint I'm talking about, guys? It's right there. You can see it over on this one a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's where that's going to be. Okay, so let's see if we need to rotate it all. If I rotate it, I might be able to maintain one little teeny sliver the whole way. That would be really nice. Let's just make sure we didn't screw up our action by doing that. Well, why is this up so high now? Call me crazy, but I think I just positioned it a little bit different is the big thing. Maybe I can get that extra little bit out of this now that we have the servo detached. I don't know if we're going to get that much out of it. Yeah, I doubt it. That's a pretty big change. Yeah, that's definitely not going to work. Definitely not. Now what I'm looking for is just seeing it slide in and out, left and right. That means that I need to move it over toward the canoe a little bit more. As much as I can. Which again is another undesirable trade. I don't really want to have to do that. Alright, it is what it is. Time to score this thing up. Okay, so we're just going to score the sides that we know we need potentially to come in contact with. Be careful not to cut yourself. This is a relatively small servo, so that you kind of necessarily have to have your hands close to the knife, but you don't want to tempt fate, guys. Don't do it. Alright, so then if we would get so lucky as to have something to attach to here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. My guess is we're probably not going to have much there, if anything. Alright, so now we need to go ahead and just re-dry fit and then stick our screw back into that. Okay, now it does seem like we're lifted up about the same, so we should be in the right position there. And obviously any other adjustment we'll just have to take out of that. Screw's already on the head of the screwdriver there. We'll just shoot this thing in here. Now these are the little Metal Gear servos that I recommend on the Emax servos. If you check the description below, I think I found them for even cheaper in a 4-pack than they were in like a 10-pack. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure why that is, but definitely get some. They're great. I really like them. And I ordered them. They came in boxes just like Emax servos do, and so definitely not fake or something like that. And even if they are fake, they're pretty awesome, so I guess I'll take it. So, but they, to my knowledge, they weren't fake. Alright, so now one of the steps, of course, will be to get that channel for the wire cut. And in order to do that, I think I'm going to just quickly adapt that in so it's kind of taken care of. Okay, so you see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of making a 45-degree angle cut here. And I just got to be careful as I get closer to my motor leads. I'm just going to back off the pressure significantly. And I'm just going to walk it real slow to the edge. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go back in with a flat-bladed screwdriver and just kind of open that pocket up a little bit. Just to the extent that we got a little bit of room to work the wire around. Now the secondary cut is going to be just as close as I can make it without wasting a lot of thickness there. And then I'll use the screwdriver rather than the knife blade because I'm at a nice angle there to actually pull that junk out, the spent foam. So that should get us into the channel nicely, and then of course we can just tape over it or whatever we need to hide that cable when we get to that point. The other thing is, I don't want a bunch of tangles in this wire, so it's kind of a good time to get the tangles out if you can. You wouldn't have to do that, I guess, but I would encourage you to consider it. Now, you see how there's a brown wire and a yellow wire? Well, the yellow wire will hide better on the surface than the brown wire. So what we can do is we can probably go ahead and poke this down in there and actually let the brown wire lead into the recess there that we've created. And then that will be a little bit less visible on the surface for us. Again, like I said, not a huge deal, but just all these little details add up to a finished job that looks nice. Cool. Okay, yeah, that was fairly simple. See, that channel it's fairly smooth. In fact, if anything, we could add material back, so like a bead of CA or something to that extent might be appropriate. So I'm going to actually slip this out and use this screwdriver here. I couldn't remove that second cut, that back cut. I couldn't do that because of the nature of all this junk here. So I'm just going to force a little of the material out here. Maybe I can get in there. I sure as heck know you guys can't see for this step here. Okay, how about there? Maybe now you can see. So I did make a second cut, so maybe we can pull that material out now. I doubt it. It's just going to stay in there, I bet. Yeah, it's fine. We've still got a channel there now to put the wire into, so we're fine. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get this properly into position, which is going to basically be as tight as we can make it. Into the plastic if necessary, really would be fine. Yeah, I'm going to go into the plastic. I'm going to see if I can get this to cut just right here, and then I'll just actually wrap under it a little bit, and that'll become my channel there, my adapter to the channel. Then this I want to cut and then kind of wrap, and then we'll give our little recess here, taking just a very small amount of the canoe, not the nacelle. Okay, so usually I'll take and then cut straight down. You can tell from the gauge, not from the gauge, but you can gauge your depth by just looking at the blade. Alright, so now that we've got that cut straight down, now if we were going to definitely try to dive it in here, we'll have to take a little bit of this plastic off. So I'm going to just go ahead and just give us a cut, just like that. And that'll be our quick reference. And what I'm going to do next is I'm actually just going to get my hot blade out. We'll go ahead and cut that with our hot blade. Get it nice and toasty for this one. Okay, nice and toasty. Nice and toasty. Okay, so that did not cut through all the way yet. That's okay, I'm not really putting a lot of pressure on it. This blade is starting to kind of warp a lot, so you ever use these X-Actos like this, once they get super hot like this a few times, they start getting a little bit of a memory to them. Not wanting to heat up very well either. Guys, we are basically out of memory now. So we're going to pause it and we'll come right back. Alright guys, we're back as part 2 of, or the second half of part 8. Just kind of fighting, getting a little bit of this plastic cut out. Okay, so it feels like maybe we're getting through to the depth where we're going to get something done here. And I'm just thinking to myself, you probably don't need this plugged in right now, so why don't you unplug it, power down your receiver. Now there's always this fear that this plastic is not just like a real thin piece, and that fear is becoming very real to me right now, because I honestly don't know how thick it is. Kind of sitting here thinking to myself, crap, I hope it's not like an inch thick. Okay, so we got that real toasty this time. Oh, we're through, good. Thank goodness. Okay, so we need a little bit more on the back side there. You guys can probably see I put heat shrink over this X-Acto knife, which helps a lot. When the tip gets this hot, it'll actually transmit the heat into the handle quite a bit. But that heat shrink really helps a little bit to keep you from getting burned. Okay, so I need to do that last little cut there. Okay, just real light pressure now because I don't want to cut like all the way through the wing on accident. Okay, great. So I think we're through, whatever it is. It's kind of hard to tell because I honestly don't know what's below that. And usually once I get the foam pocket about where I want it, I will actually... I need to reposition this thing. I can't see very good. Those screws bite my beanbag every time. Alright guys, so you can see where my general outline is here. So usually I'll go like 45-degree angle to a, I would say a 3/4 to halfway depth. And then I can do a couple of cuts like this with the understanding that this cut is going to be a pretty critical one. So we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to be too deep. We certainly don't want to be too shallow. So now I'm trying to cut down to my bottom of the pocket where we've already cut straight down. So this is going to give us another angle. And then we haven't cut down onto this side yet. Okay, because we just had to cut that with a hot knife. So we'll go ahead and cut it from this axis now. So now this part is pretty rocket science-y here. You take a pair of pliers and you start digging the foam out. If you did everything right, should come away from your clean-ish cut sides. But you just got to be especially careful like on this back corner, because we just have so little material there to work with. And I'll just, I used to do it a different way. It was just so much work, and it didn't really give me better results. This is one of those things, you've done it a couple of times, you'll get used to it, and it's really not super hard. But just keeping in mind that, you know, you are removing material that is not going to be easily replaced. So don't go too crazy, don't go too deep. You can always take a little bit more material out. I do hang on to that stuff, especially for the, you know, the remainder of the build. Okay, so now I can grab onto this piece. Oh, yes. There's no prongs or anything. That's what I was thinking we were going to be dealing with down there. So we should for sure be able to get that in there now without too much trouble. Now, one big drawback to putting a servo this far back in the airframe, or in the airplane, of course, would be because the center of gravity is, you know, somewhere up here, if I recall right. So you're gonna throw the center of gravity back. You know, you're adding tail weight. You're adding it fairly close to the center of gravity, so it's not super big impact, because the, you know, if you were to put these two servos in the tail, of course it would make a bigger impact, because the proximity creates a lever from the center of gravity. But, you know, the less you can put on there, the better. But I would say that this is definitely a worthy cost. And again, we're talking about like two 12-gram servos and a Y cable, which we subtracted a Y cable in our other configuration change. So very minimal amount of change to the detriment of the weight of the vehicle. Alright, so now that we've got all that stuff pulled out, we may be the right depth already, but we're going to check. And another rocket science maneuver coming up here. We're going to check by sticking it into the pocket. Now you see this? We got excess, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this wire tight. And that's just going to sink it down in there nicely. Cool. Nice, 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 nice. Now I'm putting my hand under this thing to support it, so I can press really hard into this pocket. Oh man, that is a pretty good fit. That plastic, we evidently are like magic people, because that fit really good. I'm super, super happy with that. I didn't expect it to fit that good. I think we kind of lucked out. However, and a big however, you see how far over we are? I think I need to kind of work it that way a little bit. The clearance is okay, but you know, we need to, I don't want that thing sticking out here. I don't think it would work, although actually maybe, I don't know. Let's just try it and see. Because at this point we should be able to fire it up real quick and easy. I think we're going to end up bending too much. Let's just double check. Try it. Won't hurt anything to try unless it does. Okay, great. So they seem like they're neutrally similar positions. This one's up a little teeny bit higher than this one. So it's just the neutral position, just slightly higher. We can adjust that still with our trim adjustment here. The mechanical bend. Okay. Oh, I gotta hold that stupid thing down, of course, still. Doesn't move any further for some reason. What am I running into there? It's like I'm running into something beyond just extra force. It just doesn't have it in it to pull it any further. See, it bottoms out, mostly from leverage standpoint. I am in further on this part. I gotta move it over some. There's no doubt about it. I gotta move it over a little bit. I kind of hate to move it over because it seems like it would be good to have it closer to the canoe like that, but sometimes what we think is true is not actually correct. Now, I'm not going to adjust. I'm not going to cut this plastic here. I'm going to actually cut under it. That'll allow me to leave this pocket closed, hopefully all the way to the end of the wing, where it butts up next to the flap. Now, this is a lot easier to cut out when they're in this general shape. So I'm just take this blade, run it down a couple of times. I can just kind of slip that in there. So now the other thing is, once we get this cleared out, I have one more step that I do with a hot shim, my 20,000 shim. I heat it up and then I make the pocket, more or less smooth. That helps a lot with getting a good bond between your servo and the wing. Alright, so I'm going to just scooch this back in there. Okay, so that lined up a little bit closer to our simulations from before. But it still seems like we're going to very likely have that same problem we were having. Guess we'll find out, huh? Why does it stop? That's so annoying. I think I need to just move it over a little bit more even still. Which kind of sucks because I'm pretty close to running out of material before I poke through the bottom of the wing. I can kind of feel the servo as I press on this. If we need to move it over more, I'll probably have to trim the plastic some. I was all proud of how awesome that worked, but yeah, that might be pretty close. Yeah, I got to adjust it a little bit more. There's some plastic that we're going to be getting close to running into here. See this little tab there? We got to cut that down a little bit. We're going to try to do it with a knife first. Then we'll go to the hot knife if that doesn't work. So remember, the name of the game on this is to be somewhat patient, which I suck at doing. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to be patient enough to do that. I'll end up just ramming it through and damaging something. So we're going to go straight to the hot knife. Okay, there it is, guys. So let's see if we can get lucky and get this thing in where it needs to be. Okay. So in you go. Okay. So now the other thing is we may need to just change the angle of this a little bit too. I could actually just bring that in a couple of holes and see if that improves the torque requirement. But I don't suspect we can have that asymmetry and linkage length and still have a good outcome. So we'll see. See how it just doesn't move, guys? That's like, it's like it's totally, there's something going on. Oh! Time to switch batteries. We're just going to try a new battery. Could totally be that there's a battery issue going on. See how it's running out of juice here, I think, is what's going on. Alright, I gotta go up higher then, which should actually make it worse, but I think it's actually going to work better because the spot where we're actually pulling is going to be better angle now. So what changed, guys? You see how it bottoms out? This one moves, but that one doesn't. I think it's got to do with the steepness of the angle, so I'm going to have to go up on my controls to a higher point, which is not a big deal. Because if you look over here, we're all the way at that top hole. And over here, we're down a little bit. So I need to go to the top hole. These are the same on both sides. The only thing bad about the top hole is that I'm afraid it might expose itself. So I might have to go one hole down. Okay, please don't screw up. I don't think I have a choice. I think I have to heat up and try to do that same process that I did before earlier on. This side is not sharp either. What the heck? Did I cut off both sharp ends? I think I did, evidently. Hypothetically, that thing should be pretty hot right this second, so let's try it before we heat it up with a torch. I know it's sharp. Evidently, it's not hot enough to melt anything. Okay, made it through without incident, actually. That's mind-boggling. Okay, so now I could let this cool for a second rather than trying to pull it through. But again, that patience thing. Okay, that's a stabilizer working for us, guys. So let's try this in the higher hole. Okay, that is the higher hole, I believe. Okay. That channel worked out pretty good there. Okay, so now I can just kind of hold this where I believe it's going to fall with the glue. See, it's still stalling out the servo. So I got to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. Alright guys, I'm going to pause it, work on this for a minute, and I'll tell you what I came up with. Alright guys, so I fought with this a little bit and I figured it out. Our angle, once we dropped down in, changed pretty significantly. So we had to pull at a slightly different angle to achieve the same results. But I was able to move it up to the end of this. And I did the same thing over here. I'm not thrilled that you get to see it now, but the thing is, it's a lot easier on the servos. And so I have the pocket cut out. I trimmed it down a little bit, and basically I just went to the next to the top hole and then the top hole, because this side's higher than that side. Okay, so we get this nice pull. We have a very even deployment, which is good, although the retraction on this side doesn't seem to kind of go exactly the same. It's because it's not held in as good as this one. This one's held in pretty decent right now, so I think that's going to be largely resolved by having this held in tight. So real quick, we'll show you what we did on the bottom by just popping that free and spinning this around. And you can, this is really stiff right now. I actually don't like that at all, so we're going to heat that up a little bit and take some of that material out. So you can see this here. I went ahead and just put the brown up. I was afraid I was doing this tight little bend on there. So I used my torch, heated this thing up like you guys have seen a million times. Okay, so we get that thing hot, and then we come over here and we just do this little crosshatch pattern. And what that does is that clears the bottom in a very controllable way, and you end up with a really nice fit getting down toward the bottom. So then when you're all said and done, you're ready to put your servo into the pocket. And the thing is, you have a much smoother surface. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's smooth enough to receive the glue that will hold your servo in. Now, if you weren't in a high load position where you've really got a lot of torque on these things, my recommendation would be to not glue them. It would be to just like use a double-sided tape or something that you can remove. It makes for a lot easier repairs. But like in this application, see, I've got that doubled up just to make it thicker so that it kind of makes that triangular shape. Then we kind of have to drop the wire down in there first, and then this just falls into the pocket, and then it goes up underneath the lip of that existing piece there. Okay, so then this just gets forced over, and so obviously when we glue this in there, we're going to have to basically work that out to where that's going to stay in tight, because that's the position that we want that. Now, like I was saying, this thing is fairly tight. Now this side is a little bit tight too. So the way I'm going to resolve that will actually be pretty simple. But I'm going to try to not just be a lazy butt. And I'm going to go ahead and support both of these pieces so that as I pull it out, it doesn't rip the CA out. Okay, just like that. And then I don't want to heat treat this. So what I'll do is I'll use one of the pieces that's already been kind of heated up a little bit here. And we'll grab it here. This is already a sharpened end. So just going to heat that up a little bit. We're not going to get as hot like we're trying to melt all the way through. Then we'll just give it a quick pass through, okay? Just a little bit of heat. And then we just want to make sure we're not going to like melt everything here, okay? So I'm going to grab that here sideways and just run it through. Except I've let it cool too much, so I'll hold it this way so I can make my angle. Remember, we're not trying to melt it a bunch, we just want to open up the hole just a little teeny bit. Okay, so, and same scenario. I evidently am letting it cool too much. Grab it, give it a half twist, and then it'll pull right out. This time we'll let it get hot. Okay, I saw the change in color of the flame. We should be good now. Okay, so we just open it up just a little bit. It won't take very much to do that. Now let's test it before we even bother putting it all the way through. Whoops, wrong hole. So it goes, and there's just a little bit less resistance. I'm not going to say it's like a huge amount less resistance. But I think we're going to be okay now. You could also put a little lubricant on there. But the idea is you just want to try to mitigate as much of the mechanical stress that's going to be loading down the circuit that's unnecessary. Now the other thing too is that if you do this all right, this thing, the only retention you'll need is just a fold here or a fold here, and you're done, and then it just stays in there. But the whole time when you're working to glue stuff in, you don't have to worry about that bending out. Now over here we've got this one, and it's got kind of this straight and then bend. Well, that's because we were trying to fine-tune this to flatten out the flaps. So I'll just reach into this spot with the pliers and just straighten it out a little bit, and then just straighten it out a little bit. And you see we got those flaps pretty much flat now. So we're going to try to do the same thing here. But again, we're not totally glued in, so it may not work very well. Plus we've got this pressure from the back that sometimes I'm trying to avoid it, but... Okay, so we're just grabbing the tip of this triangle here, okay? Sorry about the wheels. I know they've been in the way a lot tonight. Okay, so we do that. This one's not going to want to find the home position very well, so we may end up just kind of agreeing to let it not go all the way down there. Okay. So now this thing is really annoyed with my maneuver. So what I'll do is I'll actually just tweak it a little bit. Oh wait. Yeah, it is that one. So now this one here I didn't have near as much excess on, and so worst case scenario I'll have to rebend this in the exact shape. And again, I'm not real excited about having to do that, but it's certainly better than the alternative. So if I just give it a little turn like that, that'll be enough to keep that from coming out in flight. I mean, it's only going to come out if it's crashed. And then the same thing, I could do a little tweak in there, but I don't think I'm going to do that little tweak in there. I think I'm just going to, in fact, I'll go ahead and collapse this just a little bit. And that'll kind of pull this flap back so that they're about even. Okay, great. So we've pretty much got that in position. Both sides are in position now. You might have noticed that was like 2 hours worth of videos. And we didn't even show anything from last night, which is a lot of time. This seems to always be one of the hardest things when I do one of these flap installs, these custom flap installs, is trying to get all the stuff to line up right and then fit the criteria of the aircraft. And this one had a lot of different weird criteria. So anyway, I'm glad you guys are sticking in there with it. Alright, so now I'd like to do some more demonstration, but at this point it just becomes a matter of trying to glue this stuff together. So I'm very reluctant to do that right this second. I hate this level, this spot where you have to make a final commitment on positions and stuff, because then you lose all your flexibility. But let's just be real. Once you get them glued in there or taped in there, or whatever material you're doing, it really does help to kind of seal the deal. It makes you know for sure that you've got everything where you want it, because they'll no longer, have that propensity to want to waffle in their position as you adjust the flaps in and out, or when you deploy the flaps in and out. So it's kind of nice to see it finally come together. So I would like to try to do that. Like I said, I'm not real excited about this step. It's a scary step, but it's got to happen at some point, right? Excuse me. And that's why we have the fine tune, because just even dropping that down that little bit makes a difference. So what I'm going to do now is I got to figure out my exact method for gluing, and then we're going to go ahead and glue them. And I'm torn between hot glue right now. I know you're thinking to yourself, are you kidding me? Hot glue? Yes. Hot glue has gap filling properties that mean that this becomes one with the surrounding area a little bit better than CA, and it's a little less brittle too. But it's also a lot heavier. The other option is mucilage. Mucilage is easier to take out later if we need to take it out. I don't want to rip the backside of the wing out if we have a problem. So I think maybe on this application we do mucilage on the bottom, and then on the top we fill all the gaps with CA, and then that makes this positionally true. And then of course we'll tape over it with white tape to obscure it when we're done. And then all this crap can get kind of temporarily, like tacked together with hot glue, and then the wires can be fed inside to get them out of the way. So that's going to be our next maneuver, guys, but it looks like we are really close to running out of time. So I think we might be done for tonight. I hate to say it because I was thinking tomorrow we might be able to try to Maiden, but in looking at all the steps left, this is probably going to be the end for now. Unless I figure out that something gets canceled for tomorrow, we're pretty much done. So one last quick look. Everything is basically ready to glue, guys. It's going to look awesome. I think it's going to function well. Not perfect, but well enough to get the job done. And I haven't given up on any of the features I want, guys. Thanks for watching. Check the links in the description below. You can buy your own servos. One quick tip, if you decide to do this, those servos are light enough, you may end up just going ahead and planning on using 2 for each side. Just gets kind of expensive, kind of heavy. But you know what, for as much stuff as going on here, it might have been a lot easier to just go ahead and cheat the panels here, make this one panel, and then, kind of split the difference here and then make this one panel. I think it would be a lot easier. But if you're a scale fanatic like me, you're not going to be able to tolerate that. And I completely agree, which is why I did it the hard way. And the awesome way. Thanks for watching, guys. Come back for more. This is part 8, I believe. The second part of part 8. And there's more to come, guys. This is not done. Even when we're done with these flaps, we still have spoilers to work out. And the spoilers are going to be fun. That's one way of describing it. The other way is horrible. You guys can be the judge. Come back for more.